This is a question that has been asked for the last 70 years, but a lot of people don't actually know what the answer is, and there is an answer for it. So I do want people to understand this. The question comes from the founder of AI, the founder of computers, actually, Alan Turing. He published a paper in 1950, and in the very first sentence, as you can see, this actual paper, he asked, I propose to consider the questions, can machines think? This is the first time the concept of AI was actually proposed in this paper. And he goes on to answer, or to try to kind of formulate the question and answer, but he doesn't really answer it in this paper. And till today, if you ask this question, even to computer scientists, they don't really know the answer to it, to the question. And that's because the answer does not come from computer science. You have to go into philosophy. And this is where this man, John Searle, comes in, because 30 years after Alan Turing, he actually answers the question. John Searle is a renowned philosopher, Oxford University, UC Berkeley, and he has this thing called the Chinese room argument, which is essentially what answers the question to the answer to the question, can machines think? And what I want you to do is just look at this picture, and you have a person inside a room. This person cannot speak Chinese, cannot read Chinese, cannot write Chinese, cannot understand Chinese. You have a person outside of a room who is a Chinese native. They speak Chinese, they write and read Chinese, they are fluent in Chinese. And the person inside a room has this book, which is basically just a rule book with symbols. And it has Chinese symbols and their responses. So basically, if you see this symbol, this is the symbol that you respond with. So it has no translation of the symbols. It just has the sort of rules of how to respond to each symbol. And what happens is the Chinese person outside the room, he writes a letter and slips it into the door. The person inside the room looks at the letter. It's a bunch of Chinese characters. He doesn't understand it. He uses the rule book to respond to it. So he sees this symbol, he responds with that symbol, etc. So he writes a response and he slips it back out to the door. And the person outside sees the response, is like, okay, responds to it. So a conversation starts between the person inside the room and the person outside the room. Now, from the person outside the room's perspective, the Chinese person, he's speaking to someone who also understands Chinese. But from the person inside the room's perspective, he's just he's just like writing symbols and responding to symbols. He doesn't actually know what they mean. He doesn't understand them. He has no deep thought or understanding about what the conversation is about. All he's doing is processing these symbols back and forth. And this, John Searle says, is what computers essentially do, right? All they do is process information. They don't have meaning, they don't have understanding, they don't have consciousness, they don't have what philosophers call qualia or the umwelt. All they do is process information back and forth. And this is the perfect way to understand and answer the question to, can machines think? The answer, of course, is a resounding no. All they do is process information. In computers' cases, they process ones and zeros as binary digits. They don't actually understand what they are processing. So before I move on to this, I do want to ask the moderators, please give me a 5-minute notice if my time's up, just so I can rush through. But yeah, so will AI replace architects? This is, of course, a very controversial one because we as architects do not want to be replaced by computers. There's a couple of ways I like to approach this question, right? So first is actually understanding what we mean by architects. So if it's going to replace architects, what do we mean by architects? And secondly, what is the future of architecture? So to answer the first question, I believe that there is a spectrum when it comes to architecture. So on one hand, you have a CAD monkey who perhaps is very good at whether it's drafting or some sort of computational tools. On the other hand, you have the architect who is has a lot more skill sets than just the sort of drafting of buildings. And if we were to name a few, for example, a CAD monkey could be 2D modeling, 3D modeling, rendering, animation, and document creation. The architect, on the other hand, will have design thinking and logic, problem solving, spatial planning, client relations. They know how to register, how to do operations, HR, sales, marketing, finance, and all the other sort of skills that comes with being an architect, like, for example, Zaha Hadid. right? Networking, public speaking, etc. This is a wide spectrum, and most of us probably fall within that spectrum somewhere. But essentially what you have to understand is that the closer you are to the CAD monkey side of the spectrum, the easier it's going to be to replace you as an architect. And the closer you are to the architect side, the sort of Zaha or the Norman Foster side, the harder it's going to be.
Mustafa, please mute your mic and turn off your video. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there's still someone unmuted. Okay, Mustafa.
Yes.
Can you please mute?
Good evening. How are you?
Please mute your mic and turn off your video. Thank you.
Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. Good evening. Can you please mute? There's noise in the background.
Mustafa Dauda from Aliko Dangote University of Science and Technology, Udil, here in Kano.
Yes, hi, Mustafa. Can you mute your mic, please? Because there was a noise in the background. Okay, I'm going to continue. So we have the spectrum of architects, of course, from CAD monkeys to architects. And what you want to do is essentially get closer to the architect side of the spectrum and not just know how to use computational tools in order not to be easily replaceable. As, of course, I mentioned earlier, A&I is very good at very specific tasks, like, for example, 2D modeling, 3D modeling. It's going to get really good at that. So it's going to be able to replace architects that only know how to do computational skills. But it's never going to be able to think or understand. Therefore, if you're able to do that, if that's what you bring to the table, then it's going to be a lot harder to replace you as an architect. And if we get back to like the definition of architecture, for example, architect actually comes from the root word architekton. The Greeks use this word to define master builder or chief builder who was in charge of the entire process. And actually, it wasn't until the Renaissance period that there was a separation between the architects and the engineer or the contractor. During the architect became just the designer, not the entire builder, but just a designer, and then you had an engineer or architect or a builder who actually did the dirty work. And I believe what's going to happen within the century is that we're going to go back to this architekton definition, but not architects being actual contractors or engineers, more so architects using technology like AI to be able to manage the entire process of building, not just the design process, but also the manufacturing and construction as well. So that answers the first kind of approach. The second approach is a little bit different because usually I get asked the question, what will change in architecture, meaning what is the future of architecture? And
sorry to cut you short, sir. We have 5 minutes more.
Okay, so let me rush through this and then get to the fun part. So in terms of answering this, I like to use the Jeff Bezos approach, which is not asking what will change, but asking what's not going to change. So instead of asking, what's going to happen, ask what's going to stay the same. And in terms of what's not going to change, I think these 3 things are probably what are going to stay the same within architecture, which is our thinking ability, as I mentioned with the Chinese room argument. Computers cannot think, we can. I don't think that's going to change. The next thing is advancements. I would have explained this a little bit more, but there's no time. So all I'm going to say is, if you look in nature and you see any kind of natural structures, whether it's a termite mound or a bird's nest or a spider web or a beaver dam, all these kind of intricate structures that other species create, if you compare 10,000 years ago from today, there's no difference. They don't advance their architecture, if you will. They're basically the same over thousands of years, in contrast to human beings who have this innate need to advance every part of our construction and architecture. So if you look at Colosseum, for example, every single part of it, from the philosophy to the design methodology, to the tools that we use, to the construction methodology, to the materials, every single thing is advanced within our architecture. So that's something I think that's not going to change. We as human beings are going to continue to advance. And then lastly, you have liability. which I think also is something that's going to stay the same. I think that what's going to happen is regulatory bodies are going to start to regulate the discipline in order to at least have architects being part of the process. Even if some architects are replaced, let's say, for example, within a firm, you're going to have the firm itself needing a registered architect to sign off on the building. So I think regulatory bodies are definitely going to make a major impact in terms of preserving the field of architecture, even with these advancements that are emerging. Now I'm going to skip a little bit to maybe some fun parts in terms of the applications, just because there is no time. And okay, so in terms of applications of architecture, what is being done right now in the field by major architects around the world? There's really 4 ways that they're using it. 1 for admin, 2 for ideation, 3 for creation, 4 for analysis. And these are some examples, of course, the different chatbots, and there's different meeting AIs. There's different forms of ideation that they use, tools for ideation, for sketching, for concept, for presentation. There's different tools for creation in terms of 3D modeling, BIM, compliance. There's different tools for rendering and animation. There's different tools for analysis and predictive tools. But to skip a little bit, I can just show you, some of the image generation tools, because this is, I think, the most prevalent today. So any major company you go to today, whether it's Zaha Architects, Norman Foster, Heatherwick Studios, they are all experimenting very heavily with image generation. And I just want to end off with a couple of examples. So you have, for example, this is a text-to-image generator. So I just type in this text prompt of a modern residential building with minimalist design, and it generates these 4 variations. You type in slightly different the style for cinematic, you get something more realistic. You type in something for minimalist, you get this. And then what I did was I started experimenting. So this is a project of mine from around 10 years ago at university. I did this on like Rhino and Grasshopper, parametric into an image generator. And I gave it this input. And as you can see, it's a lot more realistic than what I actually came up with, right? This was my final model. And this is what the image generator gave me in a couple of seconds. So I wish I had this back in the day, when I was doing my different uni projects. This would have helped a lot. And as you can see, this is very, very high quality, very high resolution render. This is another example. This one is a sketch I got online. So I just went on Google, typed in sketch, and then I put it into the image generator, also giving me these very cool renders with this text prompt. As you can see, also different variations that you can develop. I also use this example. This is another project of mine from around 10 years ago. These are the physical models. This is a render, and this is a sketch. And this one was not so good. I don't like the renders that came out of this. So, sometimes with AI, it's not always going to be the perfect output. There's a hit and miss ratio that you get. And this is an example of something that's not quite what I wanted, but I did want to show you what AI, when AI goes wrong, essentially. And then, yeah, you have a bunch of, things that you can do with AI. These are all AI generated, all things that I generated using different AI systems. And as you can see, you have a variety of things that you can do, including interior as well. So it's not just exterior models. But yeah, so I want to end off there. I know I went a little bit longer, I think. Hopefully that made a little bit of sense. I tried to kind of curate the narrative as to what was interesting for me in terms of AI, and also to answer some of the important questions I think are in the field of AI. So let me know if there's any questions. I'm happy to take some, and I'll hand over to the moderators.
Thank you so much, sir. This is educative, sir. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
So our question, we now start our question section, and our first question goes to the past president, Nigerian Institute of Architects, Architect Ben Eboh. Sir, are you still there, sir?
Yes, I am.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. First question, we'll start from the early beginnings. Sir, what inspired you to pursue a career in architecture? And time at Polytechnic Calabar shape your professional journey, sir?
Okay.
And as academic excellence, technical factors that contributed to your academic success, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. All right. I think I mentioned a bit of it at the beginning, what propelled me into architecture. Like I said, while I was in secondary school, it was a new school, so there was quite a construction site. And as students, we go around sometimes looking at some of those new buildings that were coming up. It was fascinating seeing blueprints those days. Drawings were not done with computers. So seeing the blueprints and how you start wondering how somebody could draw those things with their hands sparked a bit of interest in me. And of course, it's like you like something, but you don't have all the tools you require to do it. I wasn't quite, then you needed to be a good artist, that's fine artist, or you needed to be good in technical drawing. And for me, it was quite a bit of a shock initially when I didn't do technical drawing. I did a bit of fine art. And when they are cutting sections and they tell you this is the shape, when you cut a section, it looks like this. Just wondering, how did they do this? Of course, graphics is a language which you get to learn. And while you're a novice, it's kind of difficult to decipher how people do those things. And so you'd be in the studio all night. Then some other guy who did quite a bit of technical drawing in secondary school just come, and within 2 hours he's finished the assignment, and it looks better than the one that you were doing all night. And I kind of challenged myself that if this guy can do it, why can't I? So initially I thought maybe it was the way he held his pencil or the way he held his pen. But later I got to know that everything works with practice. And before long, I discovered that I could do it just as well and even better than those who did those things. Now, in an academic environment, there are lots of things that can either encourage you or distract you. And if you have your goals or your eyes set on your particular goals, you discover that everything works out towards you fulfilling that goal. And part of it is that when you're giving assignments, do the assignments on time, practice repeatedly, and ensure that you are always curious about things that are taught to you in class. And then we didn't have AI and computers, so you had to go to the library to look up books and see how you can upgrade whatever it was that you've been taught. So everything boiled around a determination to be the best. And that was why I initially said, you are the only one who can define what you want to be. Nobody can define you for yourself. So that determination was what sparked up the interest. And irrespective of where it was that I studied, I always looked at myself as somebody who could do just as well as any other person as far as the field was concerned. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, sir, you did.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, sir. This question goes to architect Faisal, and you've made some explanations, you've shed more light about this, but would want you to go into more details about this question. And it is based off your opening and background. So your journey has been quite extraordinary, blending architecture with cutting-edge technology. Could you share with us what initially sparked your interest in merging these two fields. And you have also co-founded several ventures, each pushing the boundaries of design and innovation. What drives you to continually explore new frontiers like the metaverse and AI within the architecture industry?
Okay, that's an interesting question. So for me personally, it's there's, I guess, different junctures that I can think of that kind of push me towards this direction. The first, what would be my primary influence is actually my dad, who's also an architect. So I kind of grew up in this, going after school to his architecture company, seeing buildings all around. Literally, he was practicing, before I was born. So I was kind of born into just everything around me was architecture and construction. So that's kind of the first. And from then on, I just wanted to be obviously like most, sons would. I wanted to be like my dad. And then I think probably first year of architecture school, their works, and it opened me up to a completely new world of what exactly architecture was. Because initially I thought architecture was just about designing buildings, especially buildings that you see around you. And then you learn a whole bunch of different philosophies and the history of architecture and a whole bunch of different things, different methodologies. And it kind of opens you up to a whole new world, which invites every other discipline into our discipline. Because architecture isn't actually isolated from other disciplines. It requires us to do everything, right? It requires us to, as the past president said, it requires us to understand business. It requires us to understand, for example, client relations. It requires us to understand how to design using different skill sets. Before computers, as you mentioned, we had to use our all of these different expertise kind of come into. And then my mission became to advance the discipline. I just wanted to do things to advance architecture. Actually, just technology. I'm also a researcher in many ways, so I write a lot of papers about the theoretical side of architecture as well. So my interests are really just everything that is at the frontiers of the discipline. So whether it's theory, anything that kind of advances the field forward, or education or media, these are all things that I'm interested in. And then specifically about some of my companies, for example, the Metaverse company came about very randomly. This was in 2020 when the pandemic happened and we were all in lockdown. A friend of mine who's a co-founder now, Sarah, she's actually the CEO of the company. She basically got together a bunch of her friends in the industry, so me and 6 other in the same avant-garde sector. And we started having these meetings every week, seeing how we can contribute as architects to the pandemic and what was going on. And we kind of landed in this idea that, okay, everyone's kind of locked up at home and they don't know what to do and everyone's separated. Why don't we start to create communities, environments that people could connect virtually? And that essentially led to metaverse projects. So we started creating these metaverse projects and these events that people could connect through virtually, and that became Illustrious, and the rest is kind of history. And that kind of goes for most other companies of mine as well. They kind of come about randomly. It wasn't like planned. Opportunities kind of come about, and then I see how I can play a role and what I can do. And usually I'm kind of a dot connector, so I have a large network of people in the industry and try to connect the dots and kind of make things happen. And that leads to some cool projects and cool companies that I've been a part of. So yeah, that hopefully answers the question. I know I kind of rambled a little bit, but hopefully it makes a little bit of sense as to how I got it.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Our next questions goes to architect Ben Eboh, sir. Sorry, sir, we'll disturb you today with a lot of questions. I hope you don't mind, sir.
Well, that's why I'm here.
Thank you, sir. Our second question is, like you said, you talk about dedication. If you are dedicated and you know where you are coming from, you know the challenges you are facing, you will be dedicated to do something right and to achieve what you want, sir. Life is a journey. The question is about professional journey, sir. Could you walk us through your career trajectory from your early days at AIM Consultants to your role as managing director at Crosspill and later as managing partner at Ben Eboh and Associates? I know you've discussed that. We want you to throw more light on it, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. All right. There are several other areas that I didn't mention, but let me just quickly take you through. I had said that I was working with parastatal of the federal government, which had no direct relationship with architecture. So at that time, jobs were not as difficult to get now. Were not as difficult to get as they are now. So immediately after youth service, I applied, I got a job, and I was at that job. You know, the thing with government work, by the 25th of the month, your salary is already in the account. You get to the office, you don't have a desk. In a small office, there are 10 of you with 3 tables, but then the salary was regular. And I now asked myself, is this the kind of life I want to live for the rest of my life? So immediately I got my professional practice, I passed my professional practice exam. I said I needed to leave. So I left. Well, at that time, there's what we call Tuesday Guardian. You buy the Guardian newspapers on Tuesdays, there are lots of vacancies. And I just looked at one of the vacancies for an architect. I applied for a company in Lagos. So I got invited for the interview, and it was kind of funny because I felt, how can a company in Lagos be inviting somebody in Calabar to attend an interview when there are lots of architects in Lagos that they could have picked from? But then I just said, okay, I needed to go to NIA and Akon office anyway, so I'll just take the trip, and if it doesn't work out, I'll still come back to Calabar. I got there at the interview. They said, when are you starting? I thought it was a joke initially because I never really, even though I wanted to leave, I didn't really want to leave. So I had to leave for Lagos. And my aim at that time, because this was when firms were just beginning to deploy the use of CAD in offices, and not too many firms at that time were using computers. So I wanted to be in a firm where computers were being used, because at that time it looked as if you didn't work in any of those kind of firms, then you were not working with an architectural practice. So the first firm I worked in didn't have computers, and after like a year, I left that one, went to another one, until I got one that was using computers. So from there, I learned how to use a computer, and I got very proficient in both the 2 and 3D. And at that time, I could now launch into the big firms. So I left and eventually got to AIM Consultants. Well, in AIM Consultants, at that time, we're doing quite a number of very big projects. African Reinsurance in Victoria Island, we're doing Office for the World Bank, we're doing projects around West Africa. So it was a kind of firm where, unlike the other architectural firms where your boss never wants you to meet the client because he thinks if you know the client could go back and, you know, start poaching you, or you know what happens with a lot of architects and their staff. But in the case of AIM Consultants, the projects were too big for the kind of fears that a lot of those other firms were expressing. So you had the freedom to interact with the client. You took briefs, you analyzed the briefs, you went for defense of whatever proposal that you'd put across. And so it was quite fulfilling. And at that time, we're traveling quite a lot because the projects were all over the country. Today, you're worried, as you're landing in Lagos, they tell you there's a ticket, you have to go to Jos. From Jos, you have to go to, all over the place. So it was quite fulfilling. And from there, I think I didn't leave because I wasn't satisfied with the job. I just left out of curiosity for the bank. And of course, there was good money there too. Then when I worked in the bank for like 4 years, again, a lot of the networks I have today were from my days in the bank, because you were in charge of all the branches around the country. So at that time, I think I was chairman Lagos chapter. So if there was a council meeting in Kano, for instance, I'll just take permission to go and inspect Kano branch or any branch around Kano. And I have the opportunity, all expenses paid, to attend my council meeting. Anyway, after that, I went back to practice because I think the consolidation of the banking industry struck, and they told some of us who were in, they call us cost centers because we don't generate income for the banks, that we should now go into marketing. And I told them, look, I didn't study architecture to come and be a banker. So I left. I went back to practice. Then there was the opportunity at Crossbill to be the MD. And again, that was, for me, some kind of distraction, because I was already doing quite well on my own in private practice. And I just asked myself, do I really need this distraction? But like the curious person I am, I decided to give it a try. So at the interview, at the last stage of the interview, I recall the governor at that time asking me, in fact, the first question he asked me was that, from your CV, I can see you're from the private sector. Why do you want to come to the public sector? Is it that you're not doing well? I told him, Your Excellency, on the contrary, I'm doing very well. So he said, so why do you want to take this job? I said, well, I just want to take it as an opportunity to give back to my state. Because in Lagos, where I was quite popular. I was a chairman. I was part of boards of certain agencies of the Lagos state government. And I just thought that if I could do it for Lagos, why can't I do it for my state? So that was it. And he now asked me, so what would you want to take? And I told him, I know the salaries that commissioners and permanent secretaries earn is not up to what I was earning as a banker 5 years ago. So it's not really about the money. I just want to serve, do my bit, and go. So I guess that kind of caught his fancy. And before I left, not up to 15 minutes after I left, they called me back to come and start. And of course, it was also a very, very fulfilling era for me, because it exposed me to liaising with, in government, you deal with legislature, you deal with executives, you deal with all manner of people, and how to manage these complex relationships. Because life actually is a web, such that what you learn in a particular sector helps you way down the line in some other sector. So it also was a bit of an eye-opener for me, and it also helped me quite a bit. In all of this, I discovered that always center stage, because you see, architecture has what I call a wide value chain. Value chain, because it's often said that architecture can be a product, it can also be a service. So whether it's a product in terms of a physical house, or it's a service in terms of consulting, or whatever it is that is like the AI thing that Faisal has just dazzled us with, you discover that at every point in time, you must define your role around your principal constituency, which is architecture. And there are lots of things that you can do within architecture that would always keep you a step ahead of every other person. So I recall at that time, I see architecture too is one of those professions that people, once you tell people I'm an architect, they automatically respect you. They think you have all the money. They think, and a lot of them get fascinated by the way we create things out of nothing. And so that in itself, even if you are selling products, once you introduce yourself as an architect, it puts you on a pedestal, and people are ready to listen because they know that whatever advice they need, as far as the building is concerned, you are the best go-to person. So I just want to round this question up by saying that architecture is an enterprise, and I keep saying this. And for us to be good architects, we must, of course, be able to profile solutions, because that's what architecture basically does. It profiles solutions, and we must also be what I would call serial entrepreneurs. Serial entrepreneurs in the sense that we are always looking for better ways of doing things. Because in life, you can't play in the same general market and expect to do well. There's what they call red ocean and blue ocean. Now, in the red ocean businesses where everybody plays at, the margins are low, competition is high, and the what they call barrier to entry is also low. So everybody is in that business. But when you're in a blue ocean kind of business, an enterprise where not too many people play in, you discover that you cash out before a lot of people know what's going on there. And that's how the mindset that we as architects must always have, such that you don't keep doing the same thing. Like my co-presenter said, you can't be, what's that other one called? The chimpanzee or the monkey? Cat monkey. If you are playing in that sector, you find out that charlatans will be competing with you. But if you carve a niche for yourself, you would always be ahead of competition. And when others are complaining that there's no business, there are no opportunities, you would be seeing several opportunities. I give the example of known entrepreneurs like Jeff Bezos, Aliko Dangote, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. These were people, and were people who they don't get tired of starting something new. Take Dangote, for instance, who is fairly down close to us here. He starts rice, he goes into salt. From salt, he goes into refinery. From refinery, he's going into steel. He's restless. And that way, even though they may call him a monopolist, he's always a step ahead of all those who are supposed to be his competitors. So to summarize, architecture is that profession that, of course, in spite of what we think or what is going on around us, it's one of the most noble professions to be in. And once you are able to define your value proposition, you would always make money and you'll always be ahead of most other people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for this. We really appreciate it. Our next question goes to Architect Faisal, and it is about architecture and BIM. Your work with D&B Emerging Tech has revolutionized how architects approach design. In what ways do you see building information modeling BIM transforming architectural practice over the next decade? And given your experience in promoting computational design through the AR Tech network, what advice would you give to young architects like us looking to integrate BIM and advanced technology into our designs and practice?
Okay, so those are Those are good questions. In terms of BIM, I think there's not, this is going to be a bit confusing, but there's not too many things in terms of BIM specifically that are going to change in the next 10 years. Because what's happening is BIM is becoming more and more of an industry standard. This has been going on for the past, I'd say, 5 to 10 years. In most major firms around the world now, BIM is already a standard. In most advanced countries like the UK and the US and Germany and similar countries, they already have regulations around BIM. That's only going to become more and more of the case. So for example, in Nigeria, currently, we don't have any BIM regulations. And mostly, if you do see BIM, it's usually just people using Revit to model. They're not actually using the whole BIM process. So I think the first thing that's going to happen probably in Nigeria is that architects will start to use the entirety of BIM, and then other consultants as well will start to use BIM. So for example, I've seen a lot of times architecture firms might adopt BIM, but then their engineer, structural engineer consultant or their MEP consultant or the contractor might not be using BIM. So it's like, there's no point, right? You're doing this very complex model, but then they're sending you PDFs or 2D CAD drawings. And then you have to remodel them if you want to integrate them into your BIM model. So what's going to happen probably is the first thing is other professions as well are going to catch up to using BIM. And by other professions, I just mean other disciplines that are currently consultants within our workflow or stakeholders. I think they're going to catch up to using BIM so that the entirety of the process becomes a turnkey solution, from concept to not only delivery of the project, but also operation and facility management. So that's one thing. The second thing is if you understand, like, for example, the different dimensions of BIM. So you have 3D BIM, 4D BIM, 5D BIM, 6, 7, 8D BIM. Those are going to slowly also enter the discipline. So currently, of course, we're in 3D BIM, which is BIM modeling and documentation. Then we have 4D BIM, which is sort of like sequence or timeline or making these animations of the construction process. Then you have 5D, 6D, 7D, which will come in to do with sustainability and health and safety and things like that. So those will be introduced as well. They're not so much for us architects. These are more so for the other disciplines, but those will also become a thing. And then also, I think the major advancements in relation to BIM are going to come from outside of BIM. So they're going to come from two areas, particularly, which is AI, first of all, and then metaverse/XR. XR meaning extended reality. So everything from VR to AR to all these different extensions of physical reality. Those are going to have a big impact on the way that we design. And also the way that we showcase our designs to clients. A very simple example is, let's say, for example, you're designing a project on Revit and you have a client that you want to showcase it to. Currently, the current workflow is we, of course, do our documentation, plans, sections, elevations, and then we might do some renders that look cool and maybe some animations to also show the client. In the future, what's going to happen is the client might come to your office and you might get them to wear some VR goggles, and they actually get to experience your building inside your building in one-to-one scale. As opposed to seeing an image or seeing a render, they're actually, physically or virtually inside the building, immersed inside and seeing the colors, the textures. You're able to make real-time changes. If they don't like the color of the walls, you can change it in real time. They can see it and all these different kind of things. So that's going to come about with Metaverse and XR. And then with AI, it's just going to become a lot more optimized. So every single thing you do will be optimized. You can, for example, optimize the shape of your building, the orientation of the building, the heights, whatever kind of parameters you have in your building. You can optimize it to certain conditions, whether it's weather and climate, or it's the site location, or it's the structural, capacity and integration, using things like finite element analysis. You can do things like generative design, so automatically generate your building based on, for example, if you're doing an urban plan, you can generate it based on parameters, like you want houses with 3 to 5 bedrooms that each are not more than a certain square footage or whatever. You can input those parameters and the computer will automatically generate an optimized solution for you. And then you can tweak it based on your own architectural expertise. So all of these things, I think, will come into play and will help to advance what we currently use in terms of BIM. So just to recap, I think BIM is just going to become more of a standard in architecture. And the two things that will definitely help in terms of advancing in the future are AI and then metaverse/XR. And my only advice, I guess, would be for architects, just experiment a lot. So use every project you're working on as a sort of a basis for experimentation. Learn something new. So I used to do this in uni, for example. While most people were, doing projects and studio projects to get a certain grade, I used that as an opportunity to learn something new. So with every project, I was either learning a new software, a new methodology, a new philosophy. So going from like a modernist, approach to a postmodernist approach, going from postmodernist to parametricist approach. So I was always trying to learn and experiment something new. And that by the end of 5 projects, you've learned 5 different software, 5 different methodologies, design approaches, etc. So you kind of learn a lot through these projects that you're doing. And then also take advantage of the information or the age of information that we live in. Because today everything is free, right? 10 to 15 years ago, if you wanted to learn, let's say, Rhino, you'd have to pick up a book about Rhino, perhaps, if you're lucky enough, or you might have to go to a certain school to learn Rhino where they teach it, which is not very many. Today, you can literally learn every software for free on YouTube, right? You have hours and hours of videos, video content that you can learn from. So just take advantage of that. There's so many different platforms. Of course, as mentioned as well, I have multiple platforms actually that teach different computational tools. ATN, Architect Network, is one. And the idea behind that was to basically create like a Netflix for computational design. So my co-founder, Oliver Thomas, he's the design technology manager at Bjarke Ingels Group. He came up with this idea, he wanted to create a platform where the leading architectural technologists or sort of technologists within architecture can get together, discuss, can, put out contents, media, podcasts, events, and also have a sort of Netflix for architecture platform that people can pay for, just like they do with Netflix, and then get access to a whole bunch of courses taught by the leading experts in the industry. And that's essentially what we created. So it's just a sort of Netflix for architecture, and essentially another platform out of many that exist where you can learn online and you don't have to travel to a certain place to learn something from someone specific. Everything is accessible to everyone. And again, you don't even have to do that. You can learn literally for free on YouTube today. So that's definitely going to be my advice for most people that want to learn something new. Experiment and take advantage of the information economy that we live in.
Comrade Ramlat and Sonny, I would want to give our speakers some 2 minutes or 3 to drink water or take tea or coffee if they have it close to them. While at that, I would want to welcome everyone on this call, most especially those of the Council of the Nigerian Institute of Architects. I have cited a couple of them. Permit me in the next 2 minutes while they sip coffee, juice, or drink water to thank our very senior colleagues for creating time to be an encouragement to us on this call. And your being here inspires us, the students, a lot. So we like to take our time to thank you for joining us. The first I observed is Architect Bashir Hanga, that is the chair of NIA Kaduna chapter, fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Architects. Thank you for joining this call, sir. And if you don't mind, we will request you later on to say the closing remarks and help us appreciate our guest for today. I noticed you have been here with us from almost the inception. Thank you very much. Also, we have the chair of Katsina State chapter of the Nigerian Institute of Architects, Architect Kamaluddin Dahiru Yusuf, FNIA. He's joined us for a couple of, maybe an hour or so. Thank you too for coming. I noticed a while ago your hand was up. I would request the moderators to, after this last lap of questions, to give you a minute or two to say what is on your mind. The assistant secretary of the institute, or two of them, are here on this call too. I noticed architect Ahmed Naibi. He is also the secretary of AIA, and he's here on this call with us. He's also an AI expert, and is one such person I would also hope that we will have on this call sometime soon. Thank you for creating time to be an encouragement to us. One that has been very consistent and has always been of great support to us is Architect Biola Akinnola. He has always been here with us, and he happens to also be a member of the Student Affairs Committee. He has been very, very supportive. He's one such person that I don't ask him for information about the NIA and ACON. 2 times he will get me the information as soon as possible. I have also noticed my dear brother too, Dennis Edopia, on this call. Thank you for joining us. And Architect Ibri Okon, my beloved brother too. I don't know if there is any council member or student affairs committee member that I have skipped or I didn't notice you. Thank you very much for joining the call. The last I tried to count, I counted close to 30 or a little above 30 presidents of various chapters that have joined this call. Thank you very much for that sacrifice. Many of you are in the season of writing your exams, and yet you created time to join this call. Thank you very, very much. So a little later, the moderators, after this last lap of questions, to our guests whom we are very, very grateful for creating time to be with us and for the much you have dispensed, we are really, really very grateful, very insightful, very delightful. After this last lap of questions, you would allow Architect Kamaluddin Ahiru Yusuf, the chair of Katsina chapter, to make his remarks. And I will ask Architect Naibi Ahmed to in 2 or 3 minutes also lend his voice to the discussion before Architect Bashar Hanga, fellow of the Institute, chair of Kaduna chapter, will say the closing remarks and help us thank our guests for creating time to be here. Please, students, we have requested that if you have questions, you can put them on the chat box, and the moderators will honor your questions. I promise you, and our speakers will answer them. The reason why we don't let you ask the questions directly is because sometimes we have to be struggling with some people to get them to just end what they are trying to say, So, but when you ask on the chat, it helps us save time. Please, we desire that you understand with us. Thank you very much. Comrade Ramlat and Sonny, you may continue with the last lap of the questions. And hopefully, in 30 minutes or less from now, we should be done with this. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you, sir. Okay, our next question goes to Architect Ben Eboh, sir. I don't know, sir, if you are still online, sir.
Yeah, I'm still online.
Thank you, sir. You talked to us about your career path, how from a banker to being a managing director in Crosspill, then working with your own firm. So, sir, in life we have life challenges in anything, no matter how good they are. So, sir, I want you to tell us about your challenges, the challenge you face. What were some of the biggest challenges you face as a young architect starting out, and how did you overcome them? Then leadership in architecture. How did your role in various architectural firms and organizations prepare you for leadership positions within the Nigerian Institute of Architects? Thank you.
All right, thank you. That's a double-barrel question, but I'll try as much as possible to wrap it all up in one piece. Now, yes, in life, there will always be challenges, and at every turn, you must always be able to find out solutions on how you would overcome those challenges. I'll just tell a short story, not more than 2-3 minutes, about a real life experience that I had, not directly relating to me, but I'm sure it's going to help some of us. Now, one of those firms I worked in before I left that firm, the principal, or one of the principals, was a town planner. He had a PhD in town planning from the University of Newcastle in the UK. And he had always wanted to be an architect, but fate dealt a different blow, and he found himself in town planning. Of course, with a PhD in town planning, he had risen to the peak of academics, and he was also in practice with an architect at that time. And this gentleman had a daughter who got admission to read architecture. And of course, he was happy that what he couldn't achieve in his own time, that one of his children has been able to achieve. And so the young woman finished her BSc, MSc, served in one of the leading property development companies in Lagos. And after youth service, she got a job with another design and build company in Lagos as well. And of course, the dad was happy. Then somewhere along the line, she got an offer letter from a bank offering her a job as an executive trainee, entry level. And the father called me to ask what she should do. I knew the point or the angle from where he was coming, because I am an architect. I was in NI politics. I was a family friend, and I'd also worked in a bank. So he felt my opinion would help sway his daughter's choice of where to go to. And I told him that, look, this choice is entirely your daughter's choice to make, because I'll give you the scenario. Your daughter went into university with a friend who probably read English. For 4 years, I'm not saying English is not running down any profession or any discipline. Now, for the 4 years she was at university, BSc, she had a social life. She wasn't as stressed as your daughter, who most of the time would sleep in the studio and would be in the studio all night and all of that. 4 years after, that young lady has gone for youth service. If she has a father who is connected, they will make sure she serves either in Lagos or Abuja, and would lobby for her to work with either a bank, a multinational, or any of the big conglomerates. So while doing her youth service, she's already earning some money in addition to what NYS is paying. After youth service, she could be retained in that organization. If it's a bank, for instance, her entry-level salary, by the time she collects her first upfront, she'll be able to get herself an apartment somewhere in Lagos. If it's Lagos, somewhere in Ikoyi or Surulere or Ilupeju, any of those areas. Your daughter is in 6th year, still struggling with the stress of architecture. Then she graduates. She had to go for youth service. By the time she's going for youth service, this girl is in her 2nd year of employment. Second upfront, she's able to buy one small Tokumbo car. So life for her, she's already seen life begin to happen. Your daughter finishes youth service, she starts looking for a job. Not too many architectural firms will pay her more than 150K. She manages and struggles. You know, even when she's working, the parents are still subsidizing her salary because they can't take her home. Then she starts struggling to take the exams of the institute. If it is like now, Enna and Akon are not agreeing to exams, so she's not even sure when the exams are going to take place. But in those days, take 2 years, averagely 2 years after NYC, she should be able to write the exams. And by the time she passes, the trajectory starts changing, and she's able to either get better conditions where she's working, or if she wants to go and start up her own practice, she can also start her practice. Now, this lady in the bank, her colleague in the bank, has reached a point where both of them now have to think of settling down. The moment as a female in the bank you get married, the dynamics change. The day you have to go for antenatal, you take excuse. The day you're leaving the house, your child has a temperature, you call in that you're not going to be able to come to work. And after a while, the bank starts getting impatient with you. And before you know it, they tell you to leave. Now, when you leave, it gets difficult to get the kind of salary you were getting in the bank. Okay, you're going to start a business somewhere. If you're lucky, the business will thrive. If you're not lucky, you just, you're neither here nor there. The other lady who went into architecture, after a while, you start building up your base, and you can determine your work hours, you can determine what clients you work for, and you can last. Your trajectory is slower, but it's steady, and it keeps rising right through your lifetime, because architecture really doesn't have any age barriers. Most of the notable architects we know, in fact, it looks as if the architecture is associated with longevity. The likes of Frank Lloyd Wright, Le Corbusier, they lived into their 80s. So, and there's no age of retirement, so to speak, as far as architecture is concerned, as long as your mental capacity is still intact. And so you begin to reap, the rewards of architecture. So that decision will be based on what her motivating factor is. And if she goes into the banking sector, she should remove the toga of being an architect and pursue a career in banking. She probably might be able to rise to become the MD, like my MD at that time did. So these are some of the challenges you find, because you graduate and you find out that your colleagues who read courses that were not so difficult are the ones making all the money. In our sector, the estate managers or the estate surveyors is an example. You labor to put up a building, maybe the cost of the building is 500 million naira. You are paid your fees based on a percentage that is less than 5% of that 500 million on for a duration of, I don't know, maybe 2-3 years. The estate surveyor comes, sells that building at the market value, not the construction value. The market value may be 1 billion. He sells it, collects 5% within 2 or 3 weeks, and he smiles to the bank. It doesn't. When somebody wants to buy, they don't argue whether they will pay your fees or they don't, depending on how prime that property is. So you'd continue to meet these challenges. That, look, why am I in this course? Why is it looking as if others who did not have the kind of entry requirements that I have are the ones cashing out and I'm not? But like I said, if you do what you do very well, you will make money. After all, in our economy today, comedians are making money. Some comedians charge up to 5 million naira for an appearance. So at the bottom of it is the fact that you must be good at what you do. I had an experience at when I was reading project management, and at the end of the program, we had like a valedictory session, and one of the facilitators said he went into project management because he was sick and tired of the architect bossing them around. We're like 2 or 3 architects in that classroom or in that class, and we sat listening to him, and he said, look, these architects, once there's a site meeting, even if they bring a baby architect to represent the company, because he's an architect, they have to defer to him or her. And most of, or some of the time, the architect, in quote, does not even know what they are doing. So they have to be the ones teaching. You can imagine at a site meeting with a very experienced civil engineer or structural engineer, and you are just passed your PP 6 months ago, and you are the one presiding by virtue of the fact that you're the architect. You must display leadership in conducting those meetings, and that leadership will only be born out of knowledge. So you must read extensively and also watch what your principal is doing. So he said they went into project management because architect does this, architect does that. Architects, when they collect fees, they'll not tell the rest that they've collected fees, and they will cheat them and all of that. So these are some of the things you should also be aware of in the industry you're coming into, that you must be above board. If you are dealing with other professionals, you must be as transparent as possible, because respect begets respect. Now, on leadership in the NIA and in architecture, you just discover that as an architect, you are a born leader, or what in the animal kingdom, what they call the apex predator. You are at the top of the food chain. So architecture actually makes you a leader. And if you are able to lead as an architect, lead other professionals, lead at site meetings, it just naturally flows into any other aspect of life. But beyond that, your ability, your social skills, your ability to network, your ability to be able to render solutions is what makes you a leader. And a good leader must be a good listener. You cannot be a good leader when you talk more than the people you are having meetings, because it's when they talk, when you listen to them, that you know how best to tackle their issues. But when you do all the talking, you don't know what's in their mind, and whatever solutions you give may not really work out well. So by and large, let me kind of summarize at this stage. Leadership is something that, in fact, there's this debate whether leaders are born or whether leadership is something that can be learned. I would say it's a bit of both. There are some people who naturally, just like you bring 3-year-olds and put 10 of them, you can easily see a leader amongst them, not because they were taught, but because they just, are born with those characteristics. So as an architect, you can learn leadership, because leadership comes by participation. Participate, you discover those who become leaders are those who had been leaders from NAS. From NAS, they graduated to chapters. From chapters, they graduated to the national. So prepare yourself for leadership. It's an intentional thing, and it's something you should also take with a lot of responsibility, and know that at the end of the day, you're going to be judged based on how you led when you were given the opportunity to lead. And people would always defer to you if they know that you're somebody that's reliable, and that you're somebody that
they avoid BD. When I say send site,
who is sending site? Mohid Abiodun, please, can you mute yourself? Okay. So I think that in a nutshell, we can be here all night, but I just want to sound a bit of encouragement to all of us as students, particularly at this level, that you must participate. It's not always about winning. You must participate in activities from your student days, because leadership is something that you can actually see it from people at their younger stages. They are the ones that gradually metamorphose into future leaders of, whether it's the institute or whether it's in politics or whatever other sphere it is that they find themselves. So I think it's been quite an interesting outing. I just want to appreciate the fact that we are here with, it's been interesting listening to the much younger generation, saying things about, things that are contemporary in terms of the profession. And listening to a lot of the presentation, I also know that there's no end to learning. The day you stop learning, you become a dinosaur, and dinosaurs naturally become extinct. So we must always cultivate that habit of learning new things and ensuring that we are always a step ahead of what's happening around our environment. Thank you. I hope I've been able to address some of your issues.
Thank you very much, sir. Yes, you have been able to address them. We really appreciate it. The next question
You're
is for, yes, sir.
Very much.
It's for Architect Faisal, and it's about metaverse. Illustrious, the world's first design-oriented metaverse company, is a fascinating venture. How do you envision the metaverse impacting traditional architectural practices and client engagement in future? Also, you have worked with industry leaders like BMW and the Hermitage Museum within the metaverse. Could you share a specific project that highlights the unique potential of this new digital frontier for architects and designers?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, in terms of the metaverse, I think there's a bunch of different ways that it's going to impact architecture. And actually, past, I'd say 2 years, it saw kind of its height. And then it kind of, the hype dwindled down. And what we're seeing now, it's going to go into its legacy phase, as I like to call it. It's similar to what, perhaps I didn't actually go through this, but I kind of know it from reading about history, but what some of the older folk there might have, experienced in real time. Very similar to the internet boom of the early 2000s, late 90s, when, the internet became such a sort of big trend all around the world. And then it died down a little bit, and then it kind of got more popular again. The same thing's happening with the metaverse right now. And what's going to happen within the next couple of years is that architects should get more involved with it. And actually, my interest in the metaverse, the reason I got so sort of involved in it is because I believe architects should be the ones leading that movement. Because I believe that the main sort of core competency of architecture is we are designers of space. We are organizers of space. And the metaverse is essentially virtual space, right? And why is it that architects aren't the ones leading this new paradigm, this new technology? Because, for example, I'm a founding principal member of something called the Metaverse Standards Forum. And this is where basically all the major tech companies, Google, Meta, Microsoft, Adobe, Autodesk, any major company you can mention is a part of this organization. And we basically set out the rules, regulations, standards for the future of the metaverse. And the first thing I realized when sort of joining this forum is that there's no architects. Even though we're talking about space, virtual space, there's no architects kind of, leading this new movement. So that's kind of my main objective, to get more architects involved in this new space. And essentially what it is that, if you look at the internet today, every activity that you do on the internet is going to become spatialized. So whether you're, you're on social media, or you're watching a movie, or you're listening to music, or whatever you're doing on the internet, or you're, whatever you're doing on the internet, including this, by the way, or you're having meetings, gatherings, panel discussions, or just a one-on-one call, whatever you're doing using the internet is going to become spatialized, and you're going to be able to do it in a 3D environment. And in order to have a 3D environment, you need architects to design that. Because what's happening right now is that you have these sort of UI, UX designers, graphic designers, and 3D artists that are just copying what they see in physical reality into metaverse spaces. And the problem with this is that it's not a one-to-one translation, because what we do as architects, a lot of times it's simplified when other people see it, but as we all know, what we do is very, very it's very, very well defined and systematic. And I'll give you a few examples, right? There's certain metaverse spaces that you might see that will have lighting fixtures, that would have columns, that would have panelized wood. And you ask the question, why do these spaces need that, right? Columns are needed in physical reality because we need some sort of structural integrity for the building because of, the laws of physics. Lighting fixtures are needed because we need, to light, to lighten up the space or to create some sort of atmospheric light. And panelized wood is needed in order to manufacture, transport, assemble, etc. In the metaverse, none of these things are needed. So the actual thinking and design logic for metaverse creation needs to be done by architects in order to create these new metaverse experiences. But that's not happening right now. So that's why I'm sort of very interested in the metaverse and even educating architects on the metaverse, kind of get involved in this movement and create these new spaces that will be needed. And the demand for it is going to be infinite because there is a limited amount of space that can be created in the material world, but the metaverse is infinite. So you can create an infinite amount of spaces, buildings, environments, cities, and there's no limit to it. So the potential for architects, designers in the future is going to be endless in terms of designing for the metaverse. And the good thing is that you don't need to learn a new skill, like specifically for the metaverse. You just need to add on to what you already know, right? So you know already the design process. You have some computational skills. The only thing that's added to computational skills for the metaverse is just what I guess I'll call programming. So for example, if you have a design, let's say you have a 3D model and a design as an architect, you need a contractor to actually build that design. The same way in the metaverse, if you have a design for a space, you need a programmer or a technical developer to make that navigable, I guess is the word, to make it operable so that it's actually a usable space in the metaverse. So the only thing you're going to need to do is to optimize so that technical developers are able to do their job. And it's not that much of a leap. It's not that much of a leap if you already have the computational skills already. And then for the second question, in terms of examples, so let me open up this. Give me a second. I will show you one or two examples of actual projects. Second. In the meantime, can you? Okay, move.
Mohammed, please kindly mute your mic.
Yes, please. Admin, mute that, Mohammed. Mohammed. Mohammed, mute your mic. Mohammed.
Okay, so this is illustrious. Let me just look for a example of a project. I think you mentioned a specific project in the question, right? So, I mean, this is an interesting project. So this is for a company called Optima, and they basically wanted to create like a whole world, like a whole metaverse world. So this is what we did. We created like a very interesting world for them. They're like a consortium of companies. So they're a couple of different companies put together. And we created different spaces, different environments for them. One is this platform, for example, for NFTs that they can sell digital assets. Another is a conference space, so they can actually have conferences, panels in this space called a salon. This is a gallery. This is sort of like an arcade. This is a control room for the company. This is a library, digital library. This is a teleportation deck. These are meeting booths, so actually you can have meetings between investors and startups, for example. They go into these meeting booths and have meetings. This is another teleportation deck. This is a meeting room, so you can have a bunch of different stakeholders have meetings in this room. You can see presentation screens where you can share your screen, and inside the metaverse you can have these experiences. This is a pitch room, so for example, if you know Shark Tank or Dragon's Den or even Lions, I think it's called Lions Den in Lagos. You can have that kind of experience in here as well. You have the investor sitting here. You have a startup founder pitching his idea. You can share his screen and kind of pitch to investors. And this is all within the metaverse. This is all spaces that we're creating, going through the same architectural process as you would for a physical building. concept, schematic, doing the spatial planning and all that. And then of course, creating some visuals and experiences for it as well. And this is the same for, a lot of these projects. This is BMW. If you guys remember the iX concept car, which can change color, they launched it publicly in January 2022. And around a year before that, actually, we worked with BMW to launch it in the metaverse. So this was the project for that. So they wanted to see how it would look, how it would interact, how people would kind of engage with it in a metaverse environment. So we did that with BMW. This is one of our avatars on the car. And yeah, so we created kind of an environment around it. We had this event, and BMW was one of the showcases for them. So yeah, I could talk about this forever. As you can see, I'm very passionate about this, but that's just a couple of ways that, I guess architects can be involved in the metaverse and and ways that, the metaverse can also impact architecture. And actually, maybe another thing I should mention is it's not just creating these kind of spaces, it's also showcasing physical spaces to clients. So right now you have, for example, Enscape, which I guess maybe this is not a great example for that, but I guess Enscape can create like renders like these, right? Real-time renders of buildings. And the good thing about the metaverse is that it goes beyond real-time renders, because instead of showing a render of a real-time render of a project, you can actually have multiple people inside of that project experiencing the space. So for example, what you can have is, if I'm working on a model on Revit right now in Abuja, I can have a client who is in Lagos and a structural engineer in Germany and a, MEP specialist in Tokyo, all go inside of the virtual space to experience the building that I'm actually designing. So we can make changes, they can have comments, and all of this can happen in real time in the actual space. And this is what the metaverse and XR essentially can contribute to architecture. And I think probably within the next 5 years, you're going to start to see technologies that allow this to happen at scale. Because right now, the only reason the metaverse hasn't taken over everything is because we're still waiting for a device that is as accessible to everyone as possible. And maybe I'll end off with this. What I often say in metaverse panels is that the same way the internet was contingent on computers to become widely accepted, and the same way social media was contingent on mobile phones to become widely used, the metaverse is contingent on some kind of device, some kind of accessibility device to become widely used. And I believe what that is going to be some sort of smart glasses. So some sort of glasses that allow you to go in and out of material world and metaverse very seamlessly. Right now we have HMDs, head-mounted devices like VR goggles, but that still kind of very much cuts you off from the real world and the metaverse. I think in the future we're going to have something a lot more kind of seamless, like glasses, which can just very quickly get you into the metaverse and out of the metaverse, and is accessible to everyone because it's going to be very cheap and very affordable for most people around the world. So that's, I think, what's going to happen in the future. And the last thing is, I also wanted to mention, I did mention this in the chat, for anyone interested in everything I've spoken about today, whether it's to do with other emerging technologies or AI specifically, and want to know more about myself, for example, this is a link to my website. I will be posting this slide on my website in the next couple of days. And also because I didn't get to talk about too much about some of the AI stuff, what I've actually done is I've put together a checklist package specifically for students who want to get into AI image generation. This takes you through pretty much every single thing you need to do, from the websites and how to find them, to downloading it if you need to install it, to the text prompts that you can use to get certain things, to the settings that you can use, and everything in between. And I know that a lot of resources are expensive for students, so I've tried to make it as affordable as possible, as cheap as 4,000 for the cheapest version. And for the complete version, it's 20,000, but there's a 20% discount as well. For people interested, you can check it out. So scan the QR code, check it out. If you are interested in AI, especially image generation, and you want to get into it for your school project or any other thing, hopefully this would be a good start. And also, feel free to always reach out to me. I do respond to emails, and I try to be as valuable as possible as a resource. If you have questions or anything, I'm always available to answer them for you. So once again, thank you to NIA SAC for the invite and for this conversation panel. And thank you for the questions. Hopefully, I've been able to answer the questions that you had and be valuable to you. And yeah, hopefully we do this again sometime.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Ramlat, there is a question people have not asked Faisal. Faisal, are you married? If no, when do you want to get married?
Oh man,
are you going to attend the wedding virtually or physically? Are we using Meta? Don't mind me, I'm just joking.
The first metaverse wedding was in 2020. I remember that happened. So it's it's not actually that far off. It does happen. But no, I'm not married. Still a bachelor, an entrepreneur bachelor. As a lot of people know, it's architecture is the first wife. So whoever I marry is going to be my second wife sometime soon. I'm very, very.
That's okay. Thank you very much. All right, Comrade Ramlat and Comrade Ridwan, thank you so very much too. You have done us so well. Please, I would want Architect Kamaluddin, whose hand has been up. He's a chair of to say a word or two. If you are still on this call, sir. Architect Kamaluddin.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
My chair.
I remain loyal, boss. I will be with you next tomorrow, inshallah.
You are highly welcome, and you actually come to the state of hospitality.
I look forward to it.
Kamal, I'm still waiting for your invite to.
Mr. President.
That is the reason why I raise my hand. It's because of you, sir, and it's because of you I even joined this section.
Architect Enyi, I'm told that the room that was given in Kebbi is the same room you occupied when you came. In the same hotel.
In fact, I wanted to tell you that Kebbi spoils me.
I'm telling you.
We also spoil you, sir.
All right, okay. Architect Kamaluddin, you have the floor, sir.
Yes, thank you very much, my child. The way you are taking our students on this your program, and I'm so happy that today one of our talk shows Architect Ben Eboh, who's immediate past president of the NIA, and I was listening his narration, but there is something that he needs to tell our students so that he will encourage them, especially the BSc, MSc, and HND dichotomy that we have. And most of the students there, I know much holders, and there are so much in the market, and some of them have lose hope, and with the Architect Ben Eboh, they should know that there is hope. Architect Ben Eboh is one person that set a record in Nigerian Institute of Architects, who happens to be a HND graduate, and he was able to roll from final 1, final 2, PPE to the level of his to the president of the Nigerian Institute of Architects, and he has done well. In fact, he has done extremely well, because it was during his time that Buraha of Aqua NIA, but he was able to to settle the matter, and that brought joint board examination with ACON and NIA, and it was able to assist most of the people to get registered. And with Ben Eboh is actually a role model, and we actually see him always as a role model, right from Lagos to his leadership to NIA. And I will never forget Ben Eboh, because Ben Eboh bring happiness to me, and Ben Eboh bring sadness to me. It was Ben Eboh. It was because of Ben Eboh that I was harassed, and it was because of Ben Eboh I was also in the race to something like
Kamal, don't go there.
architecture. So students,
I'm just wondering, with all these accolades, you should invite him to Katina.
so student, my student, please, if you are listening to me, please, there is hope in architecture, and Ben Eboh is a symbol. It's a symbol. All what he has narrated, he has not narrated that for you. But I'm telling you now that Ben Eboh is a record holder. And I don't think we'll get that another breaker up again after Ben Eboh. Thank you very much, my chairman, for giving me this opportunity to say much about Ben Eboh.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Kamal.
Yeah.
Thank you. Architect Ahmed Naibi, are you still on this call? You have 2 minutes.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, my President Ben Eboh.
Good
Once
evening.
a president, always a president. Permit me to
Yes,
use that.
you were my assistant secretary.
Yes, sir.
One of my assistant secretaries.
Yes. Chair Student Affairs, I can see your handbook. I'm very impressed. Just an advice for the young ones. Please take all this advice that has been given. I commend the ones that are still here for still being present online. It means that shows your dedication to the profession and for success. Success is not easy. Success is not by shortcuts, and this is an ingredient for success. As Actor Ben Eboh said, each and every one of you as an advisors, you have to get involved. Architects are natural leaders. Either you're born with it or you learn it, you have to take charge. And advice is by ability to learn and unlearn, which you can see Actor Faisal has just shown you one of the glimpses of opportunities for architecture. Architecture is fast evolving. So your ability to learn and unlearn and relearn will make you fit into any scenario. That you have to keep as a very, very important skill. Second is for you to network and be involved. Yes, you can say, I can see your involvement in this student affairs, which is very good, but you also have to encourage others to come, join the association, be active in the association. That's whatever you learn, you now take it out, engage with your other build professional colleagues, the engineers, the planners, the surveyors. Create this environment and air of authority by learning about what they do as well. That way you will be a complete architect. You understand? So this is my advice for you. Please keep up the hard work and take this advices that was given this night, and the future is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Architect Naibi. Thank you so very much. We don't take these words lightly. Thank you. Gentlemen, we have to come to a close by inviting Architect Bashir Hanga. I'm sorry that earlier they said I introduced you as chair of Kaduna. No, it's Kanu. I know Architect Bashir for a very, very long time. So If I made that mistake, I'm just probably being tired. I'm sorry about that. So he's the chair of NIA Kano State chapter, and he's a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Architects. So please do us the honor of bringing us the closing remarks, and deeply appreciate our speakers this evening for a job well done. We are truly very grateful. Thank you, sir. Architect Bashar Anga.
Good evening, everybody. My
Good evening.
president, PNI, Architect Ben Eboh.
Bashir.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Good to hear from you.
It has been an inspiring speech, sir.
Thank you. How's Kano?
Yes, Kano is doing fine. I'm already on bed. That's why I will not show myself.
Okay, no problem.
Yes, well done, well done, well done. Chair Student Affairs, well done.
Thank you so
You and
much,
your
sir.
colleagues, yes, and the president of the students, Architect Ramnat, well done for what you are doing. Actually, from what I have heard from the PPNI about one thing that carried me along is, you see, we are restricting ourselves, we are restricting our, capacity and capability to do things. It happens that it's a coincidence. Yesterday, I had a meeting with the HND students at Kano State School of Technology. All the HND students in HND2, they came to my office looking for advice, asking for things. Just yesterday, I had a meeting 2 to 4. So they were asking me these kind of questions, forgetting that even there will be a platform today for this interaction between students and our senior colleagues. So actually, one of the things I was discussing with them was what the PPNI just said, that we should not limit ourselves. Architecture, the horizon is wide. There are a lot of things we can do, we can partake, we can participate. Just as he has, we have seen from the way he led his life, from his experiences, from his practices, and what have you. So please, as we are growing up now, we have already, reached the top of our ladder. As you are growing up now, open your mind to a bigger horizon. You can be in different things, especially as one of your colleagues now, our junior colleague Faisal U-K has done. I was in his house once, and I think he has already forgotten. I was with his father, and the father introduced me to him at home. And he said, look at this man, he doesn't sleep. He's always working throughout the night in his room. And he came out of the room, we greeted, and he said he's on this metaverse thing. And his father was explaining to me, it was something entirely new to my thinking. But, see how he has entered a new horizon that we don't know about, and he is introducing us to it. So the students, at this moment, this is the right time for you to, venture into this thinking, and so that you can have a wide horizon, read, research, move around, and be in different things, so that, architects can be everywhere. We are restricting ourselves a lot in just design, supervise, construct. The horizon is wider than that. So let's take our position. Let's be in the forefront. Yes, let's be at the leaders, as he said. Let's lead in everything. So in doing that, we have to read. We have to read. We have to research. We have to find out about things so that we can fit in, so that we can be at the forefront everywhere. This is my big advice. As for some of us we can say we are late, we are just in one thing or the other. We only design and build. But for you, you just have to start thinking wider. That's what I was telling my audience yesterday. And this platform is an excellent platform for you. It's just a kind of mentorship, that you hear a lot of things so that you can try to, emulate, so that you can be better architects than we have been, so that you can contribute better to yourself and the society. I thank the chair student for initiating this platform, and our seniors for giving and sharing with us all their experiences, and the junior ones for joining to hear and learn, because that is the essence of us being here. I wish you all the best, and I urge you to please do more. Try to learn, try to research, try to move ahead, so that you can be at the forefront, so that you can chart your way to success. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, all of you. Wish you all the best. Yes, yes.
Architect Bashar, in
Yes.
fact, it's as if you literally took what I was telling the students at Waziri Umaru Federal Polytechnic here in Bringing KB. Please,
Yes.
is there any student here in that was or that is a student of Waziri Umaru Federal Polytechnic that I met this evening? Is there any of you here? Is there any of you here? Because I invited you for this call, except if you have left. Sir,
yes.
I
yeah,
think
I
I
was
visited
mentioning
that polytechnic during my time as president.
Yes.
Wow.
They were having a
Wow.
students competition. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
just this evening, I was telling them that
Yes.
we are the ones just misplacing priority and talking about you because you are in polytechnic, you want to struggle and fight, you want to gain relevance. I was asking them that how many architects are into the production of tiles?
Exactly.
I told them a story of
Yes.
how during my induction as special marshal in Mina, I sat next to a banker who is almost like a bank manager, you know, and then I was just looking at cobwebs in the hall that we were, you know, were to be inaugurated. We were waiting for a big man, one big marshal from Abuja, you know, and then I was just wondering, can't we go into research and production of paint that can be like repellent to cobwebs, spiders, and all these things? Do you know that the banker next to me picked interest in that thing and he kept calling me over a span of 6 months, calling me and asking, when are we going to front this idea? Do you know that at the end of 6 months, this guy was calling me that I should come to his ceremony that they are launching. He wants to go into production of paint.
He took
that
over
can
from
repel.
you. Yeah.
He took over now.
He took
I
over
was
from
telling
you.
them at Waziri today, they were laughing. I said, see
Of course.
what opportunity I lost.
Exactly.
Less
That
than
what
1 year into that time, sir. This banker resigned from banking because he wants to go into that in full time. He resigned from banking.
And lawyers too. Yeah.
Imagine, see the example that Architect Ben Eboh gave us. You know, a lawyer is the one doing the airport in Lagos, MM2.
Yes.
Imagine, you know. So if all these things, does it require you to be a university graduate or polytechnic graduate? Who cares? Who cares?
Yeah,
you know. So if we can get our onions right, all these things we're even fighting for are not necessary. These are not the things that make us really rich, you know, as it were. See what Faisal is doing now.
It's true.
I don't want to say things out of proportion, but I see Faisal now as a billionaire, you know, and then is this what he's doing? Is it construction? Is it design and construction?
That's why he cannot get married now. That is why he's not married now, because his wife will not allow him.
So, gentlemen, my beloved students, please take advantage of what Faisal has also taught, and then what you can harness from his website, and then go and learn. Even me, I want to consult and contact him maybe tomorrow morning and ask him if I can learn some of these things. I don't mind learning them. I'm telling you, I'm not that old. I will learn them. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and for being on this call. I'm sorry, I wanted to call at least 2 or 3 presidents of different chapters to say a word, but our time is fast spent. Tomorrow is a long day. We all have to retire to bed now, and our speakers really need to go and take some rest. Thank you very much, Architect Enyi Ben Eboh. You are always available when we call. Your humility, like Architect Kamaluddin have said, honestly, you have been a great inspiration to many of us in ways we cannot even describe. Thank you so very much, sir, for your humility. Faisal, I am assuring you that this is not the last time we're going to call you on this forum. I'm assuring you that we will still call you again when we need to further inspire the students to continue to think in this direction. Thank you for your availability. God bless you. And for my co-moderators, President of National Association of Architecture Students, thank you also for availing yourself and your team. Thank you. Jira, that is behind the scene, handling the technology for us and ensuring that this platform works. Thank you. My co-committee members who are always working behind the scenes too, thank you very much. I saw 1 or 2 head of departments that were on this call, like Architect Jibril Abdullahi. I'm sorry I did not recognize you guys much earlier. I'm so sorry. It skipped my mind, but thank you very, very much for being on this call. And if there is any other architect, council member, or committee members that I did not recognize, I'm deeply sorry. It's just an oversight. Thank you all very much. God bless you. Have a very fruitful week. We have a policy of always asking our speakers to say a word of prayers for our young ones, our students, that God will bless them. You have taught them a lot. Please take turn and just say a word of prayer for them. I will start with Faisal, and then Architect Enyi Ben Eboh, and then we call it a day. Just say a word of prayers for them, for students in particular. Thank you.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Malik Yawm Al-Din, Iyyak na'budu wa iyyak nasta'in, Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim, sirata allazina an'amta alayhim, ghayri al-maghdubi alayhim wa lad-dallin. I pray that God blesses and directs and guides all students that are here. And I hope that the information that I've given is useful in that guidance as well. And God uses me as a tool to help guide others. And I pray that everyone finds the success that they are looking for in the future. And once again, thank you so much to Architect John for the invite. Very happy to speak to the students and very happy to return in the future as well. And also thank you to my co-panelist, Architect Enyi, the past president. I've actually been listening to his answers while he's given them, and there's a lot of wisdom that I hope that students also can take away, because I've learned a lot from his answers to the questions that he's given. I think there's a lot of wisdom in a lot of the things that he says. So hopefully students are able to pick that up. I know sometimes it takes knowledge to recognize the wisdom in some things. So I just hope that people actually listen and take away and are able to implement some of those things in their work. So thank you once again, and I hope to see you soon.
All right.
I mean,
Lord,
sir,
I
thank
have
you
this
so
Father.
much, sir.
Yeah. Let me take the other prayer. Lord, our Heavenly Father, we thank you for an opportunity to gather under the auspices of the Student Affairs Committee of the Nigerian Institute of Architects. We thank you for the students of architecture from all walks of life, from all different institutions within the country and even outside the country. We thank you for this opportunity for us to be able to interact and share experiences on the journey, or the architecture journey. We hope that this forum has been able to impart much needed knowledge on everybody that has participated here, and that the knowledge that we've gathered from this gathering would enrich our lives and our aspirations as far as architecture is concerned, and even in other spheres of our personal lives, the Lord will be met, and that this profession will continue to grow from strength to strength, irrespective of the challenges that may be occasioned by the economy and every other thing around us. We ask you, Lord, to give us the strength to overcome. And at the end of the day, each and every one of us will have positive testimonies of this evening that we are better off because we attended this session. Thank you, Lord, and forgive us our sins, grant us our heart's desires, and as we start a new week, O Lord, go before us and lead us in every activity that we're going to embark on. Thank you, Father, for these and many more we've not prayed for. May our prayers be answered in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. So thank you very much. Our next call will be on the 8th of September. We already have our speakers. We assure you that they will also blow your mind. They will blow your mind. I don't want to say beyond that, but make it a point of duty to be here on the 8th of September. at 8 p.m. Thank you very much and good night, everybody. Students, I love you. And for those of you in Northwest, we'll be seeing you guys within the week by the grace of God.
Thank you,
Ciao.
sir.
Bye-bye.
All right,
Thank
thank you and good night.
Good
Bye.
night.
Thank you all. Thank you. Bye bye.
Architect
Thank you.
Faisal, thank you very much.
Yes.
God bless you.
Yes,
Architect
thank you.
Bashar,
Thank you.
Bye
Thank you.
bye.
bye-bye. Maogasirazo.
Okay, so Ramlan, bye bye. Ramlan.
Ramlight, well done. Thank you very much. Jira, thank you very, very much. I think I saw Architect Adamu, Dr. Adamu. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone. Jira, God bless you. Thank you. All the presidents that are here, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. You tried this time around. Let's see you guys again. Kayode, Colby, Justin, thank you very much. Thank you for
Good night,
creating
sir.
that
Good
joint.
evening, sir.
Good night, sir. Our dear HOD, Architect Jibril Abdullahi, thank you so much, sir. Thank
Good
you.
night,
You have
sir.
kept track
Good
with
night, sir.
us. We are grateful. We are grateful. Gaza, thank you.
so much.
Ephraim, thank you very much. Musa Abdul Wahab, yeah, you kept your word. Thank you for joining. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, good night,
Precious
sir.
Joshua, thank you. Thank you very much. Randall Oluseun, thank you. Oscar, thank you. Good night, everyone. Good night. Good night. I love you all. I love you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, good night, sir.
da wanda zai ɗauka kawai.